Welcome back to another conversational pace shoe review. We are reviewing an interesting shoe that was, I guess, number 2 on the viewer's pick. We have the Salomon Thundercross, probably in the running. Actually, it's probably not even a contest. Best shoe name of the year.
Oh yeah,
Like, what's
yeah.
better of all time? What's better than Thundercross?
I mean, I am just a fan of acronyms and just letters and colons in between, like two letters, like the GS TAM. So I don't know. It is a cool name though.
Yeah, like I just think Thundercross and like it. I just feel like I'm getting like experience points, or I'm getting like a Madden boost just by putting on a Thundercross. Before we get going, these shoes were provided to us by Solomon and Running Warehouse, but we're under no financial obligation to say whether we like a product or not because we want to keep these reviews authentic and beneficial for you. No one will get to preview or watch this footage before it gets published to YouTube. Solomon Thundercross, $140. My pair is a US size 10, came in at 10.3 ounces, also 292 grams. Stack height is 27 millimeters in the forefoot, 31 in the heel, making for a 4 millimeter drop. The upper of this shoe is, well, I get there's not that much exposed mesh on the shoe. It's like mostly overlay. Which we'll talk about that later. Good
Yeah,
thing and a bad thing for sure. So ton of overlay across the toe cap and going to the midfoot. There's a little bit of like it's a very dense mesh across the top of the forefoot, and there is a kind of stretch mesh like debris cage in between the laces and the tongue just to keep debris from getting in. Full multi-layered kind of plastic overlay construction around the midfoot, which gives it a lot of shape and definitely contributes to the lockdown of the shoe. Interestingly, I actually didn't even realize it until I was writing my notes for this review this morning, was that the tongue is not gusseted at all.
no.
It's just a classic floppy tongue that's sewn in at the very bottom of the shoe, which I guess it didn't need to be gusseted because I didn't even notice. It's got the classic Solomon SensiFit system, which is basically their midfoot cage, and how it rolls into the quick laces. It has I guess what they say is like the cheaper or the budget lace garage, but in my opinion, it's actually the correct lace garage because it's big. What else? Kind of a moderately stiff heel cup. It's pretty traditional. There's no like knit collars going on up there. There's definitely a hard something at the very bottom of the heel cup to give it some shape, and then there's kind of like a medium amount of padding around the ankle collar and the heel. Oh, and I would probably say like medium padding in the tongue. What do you think? Like medium to
Medium
higher?
padding. Yeah, like true medium padding.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of fluffiness to it for sure. The midsole is just one slab of Solomon's energy foam, which is it's a pretty basic EVA. I mean, it's in the Sense Ride, the Glide Max TR, the Ultra Glide. They put this in a lot of shoes. They tune it a little bit depending on the shoe. So this one is definitely tuned in its own way, but that's really all that's going on in the midsole. The outsole is a Contagrip outsole, just like Solomon doesn't collab with anyone for outsoles. They're all in-house rubber, huh? Like
They've never done like a Vibram
I don't think
collaboration.
so. No, I think it's all Contagrip. But okay, so new outsole pattern. These lugs are something that
Oh, they've done CLE. They've done CLE before. That was the latest one.
but that was like not rubber collabed
True.
though.
Yeah.
Just was like mostly aesthetic, I guess,
Yeah.
just for the cool kids. We got
Sorry.
5 millimeter lugs, 5 millimeter lugs, Contagrip rubber, new lug shape, no rock plate. Definitely, we'll talk about that. I didn't actually look up to see if there was a rock plate for a while because I wanted to see if I could tell on my own if there was one. Finn, how is your running in this shoe?
So I'll give you the bad news before the good news. The bad news is I told you a week ago that I was at about 50 miles and I was going to get to 100. I ended up getting to 83 miles. It was all on trail, mostly non-technical, but lots of winter and post-winter conditions. So was getting through a lot of mud, snow, ice, etc.
So the time on
Talking
feet was there.
time on feet, I mean, I think I did just over 10 hours time on feet.
That's
Just over
solid.
10. No, 11 hours time on feet. I'm trying to do the math here on these runs. 11 hours.
Nice. And you got to experience a pretty wide variety of trail conditions over in Salt Lake, huh?
Yeah, we had winter kind of came early in the foothills, so we got, a few inches of snow in mid-November. And so like early days on this shoe, I was running on like packed down snow, and then it got warm again, kind of like fall returned, and all of that melted. So I was telling you offline, I had a really good opportunity to test sort of like the drainage of the shoe and how it handled kind of going through inclement weather and like, pools of water from melted out snow, stuff like that.
Nice. Yeah, my running has taken a turn for the better the last few weeks. I cracked the
You're
century
back.
barrier. I'm back. I'm back. We're back. We are back.
Javelina 2024.
Oh gosh. I'm not ready to start thinking about that yet. 102 miles. I think they were all in Ashland, but you know, kind of like you said, I think we actually picked the correct time to test
Yeah.
and review this shoe.
Yeah.
In between fall and winter, I think is really where this shoe shines because as you can see with both of our shoes, they're both muddy. We actually got to run in like wet, sloppy conditions in this shoe. Where did you find that this shoe excelled?
Well, I'll give you one surprise first. So, like, I think we'll probably talk about the outsole in a minute, where there's 5 millimeter lugs in this thing, which is fairly aggressive. I actually found that on trails here in Salt Lake, like the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, which are not technical, it's like one micro step above like gravel trail running. They weren't a hindrance in that environment, which I found very interesting.
I noticed that as well. I thought just initial first look of this shoe, I thought the lugs were going to be too far apart and that it would be slappy and just kind of wobbly on hard pack, but I actually found it's very smooth on
Not bad.
hard pack dirt roads. I even, I used this as a door to trail shoe where I would run a mile on pavement and it's it's good enough, it's can totally handle just some mellow dirt road miles. But I think I definitely noticed that the lug pattern, the 5 millimeter depth really shines when you get into the mud and the slot because this was like one of the best gripping shoes that I've had all year in terms of really kind of digging down into the ground. I had no traction issues whatsoever with it over the course of my running. What about you?
Yeah, it's an inclement weather workhorse. Like, it's a great shoulder season shoe.
And I guess that also then brings up the upper. This is not a summertime shoe. Like my feet never got cold. I've been running in below freezing for most days the last few weeks, and my feet don't start cold in this shoe. So I can only imagine what it would be like if I was running in 90 degrees, because it's just there's not much room for breathability in this shoe. But for like you said, the shoulder seasons, it's very nice for being I would almost like water resistant.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's partly like you said because of where the overlays are placed, and like if it can't jump those overlays, you kind of like can get by.
Yeah, totally. I noticed, across the ditch where I run so many miles on, when it rains, it gets kind of muddy. And, there's always, you step on the puddle, you splash a little bit of mud or water onto the other foot, enough of those, and, it starts to soak through the mesh and your foot just gets a little damp. I never noticed that happening in this Thundercross. It
Yeah.
was like just enough water protection where my feet didn't get wet. I bet, I mean, I didn't get
So
to take it in snow, but was this enough protection where like the snow doesn't melt through when you run?
uh no, it definitely melts through. Like, at least in my experience, I did a couple runs on this trail called Pipeline in Mill Creek Canyon here in Salt Lake City, and that's a relatively flat trail with a couple divots, and those divots are like 6 inches deep. And there were a few occasions where, unless you wanted to like run through the brush on the sides, you had to engage those divots. I stepped through, got soaked solid, and I was just going to add there that the drainage is terrible. Like, my feet went like hypothermic by the ends of the runs. It was wild.
Yeah, definitely with the way that the overlays are constructed, if you do fully submerge the shoe or soak it, it's going to be a while before the water comes out, because
Yeah.
we're going like full bathtub construction on the inside with the overlay wrapping all the way around the foot, and there's no exposed spots of mesh.
And I'm not talking like perpetual exposure from the beginning of the run to the end. I'm talking like early on in the run, hit a divot, got submerged, and then for the next 8 miles, I had a chance to air out, and I was still soaked by the end of the run.
Definitely a good thing to keep in mind for this shoe. How did you feel about the overall fit and the size? I mean, we've actually reviewed, this is the fourth Salomon shoe that we've reviewed on the channel, because we did the Pulsar Trail Pro 2, the Ultra Glide 2, the Trail TR, Glide Max TR, and
Glide
then
Max
now this
TR.
Thundercross. How does the fit
So
compare?
I'll say this: when you proposed this shoe review channel, whatever it was, like a year plus ago, one of the biggest things I was intimidated by was having to one day deal with Salomon uppers, because historically it's been more of like a performance fit, like very race like, very snug. And I feel like they've brought in, even with the Ultra Glide and these other shoes, like a much more like comfort based upper. It's more roomy, more relaxed fit. Like you were talking about this tongue earlier, like it truly is a medium sized or sort of like built tongue where it can kind of float if you want it to, but if you need structure, it's there as well. So to me, that's been one of the coolest, in my opinion, positive innovations on the Salomon front with their fit, is just like how much more how much they've changed like the focus of their uppers.
Yeah, I love seeing the variety now, whereas they don't all fit exactly the same. I think I would go as far as to say that this is the roomiest Salomon that I've worn, at least this year. I think this one gives me a little bit more space than the Ultra Glide 2. Definitely more space than the Glide Max TR. Definitely more space than the Pulsar Trail Pro 2. So for those looking for, a slightly roomier opportunity to throw on, the Salomon name and have that Salomon security and grip, this might be an option for that. I thought that from a length standpoint, this was pretty spot on for Salomon. I thought that my 10 fit exactly like all the other Salomon 10s, which for me is like just ever so slightly longer than, I would say, the average, but not long enough where I'm going to say go a half size down or anything like that. I would definitely still stick with 10.
The only other thing I'll add on the fit front, and you can kind of see the bunching happening right there, but at certain issue, I had a couple issues at certain levels of tightness with the quick lacing system where it did create some bunching around the metatarsals, and that created some pressure points. But if I adjusted it just slightly, that would go away. That was just annoying, that I had to be super particular with like the exact kind of tightness on the laces. So similar issue to what I experienced on the normal Serac, that kind of bunching around the metatarsals on the upper. But besides that, great.
Yeah, that was definitely a red flag when I put the shoe on for the first time, was how much it bunched around the bottom of the laces. And that was, a good thing for some, because it showed that the shoe is actually somewhat higher volume and on the wider side. I was worried that bunching would cause a lot of irritation. And at least for where it bunched on my foot, I actually never noticed it at all when I ran. So it was a great like set it and forget issue. There was never a single time where I was on a run where I had to stop and like retighten the shoe or anything. So the fit ended up working really well for me, as well as the lockdown. I feel like that's actually been a theme with most of our Salomon shoes, is how well the SensiFit lacing system actually does work. I've like never had any lockdown problems with any Salomon shoes ever, and this one is no different.
Yeah, great step-in shoe too. Did you feel the same as I, where it was like
it's
stepping into the shoe, you felt like you could have done anything in it?
Yeah, it was actually super comfortable, which was interesting because looking at the shoe, I didn't expect this upper to be very comfortable. Yeah. And reading, the stack height, the 27, 4', 31 heel, I expected the midsole to be a little bit softer than it was. This is a firmer shoe, in terms of the cushion. Here's an interesting, comparison that I had over the course of running in this shoe that I thought was kind of fascinating. The cushioning of this shoe actually reminded me of the normal shoe rack. And it's because after about 15, 20 miles, the initial squishiness was completely gone. and it felt like I
Yeah.
packed the shoe in. But then for me, from 20 to 102 miles, the feel of the cushioning has not changed one bit.
Why is that? Like, what's your theory there?
It's almost like the foam packs out, and in some shoes when it packs out, it gets really soft and like putty like and just feels like crap. Some of these other EVAs, which I don't know, it feels like a newer thing to me, just like the normal, once you pack it out and it hits that like compressed state,
Mm.
that's like it almost feels like that's what the designers were aiming for in terms of the cushion. Like, not necessarily like it's going to feel the same from mile 1 to 100, but it'll feel the same from like mile 20 to 200. So I was worried about the durability, because I was even texting you earlier, like maybe a week or two ago. I said I was worried about the midsole durability as I was like 40, 50 miles in. But now that
Yeah.
I'm over 100 in, it hasn't changed at all. So now I'm feeling like this might be one of those shoes where it might just stay like this for a very long time. And this upper's not going anywhere. There's enough tread on this outsole to last a very long time, especially in soft conditions. So my viewpoint of the durability of this shoe has completely changed after 100 miles versus 20.
Maybe this is a crazy thought, but is there anything to be said about each individual person's foot kind of doing the last bit of molding on the midsole foam, and then from, like you said, miles 20 to whatever 100 or 200, it's like a perfect play for whoever's wearing it.
I think that there's definitely some merit to that. And that might also be something that's different from person to person as well, just with like their foot strike and how their entire foot lands over the like the last of the shoe. But this was one of those ones that kind of surprised me. Like, it's a firmer ride, but there's enough cushion where I feel like I can run about any distance I want in it. Like, when are you pulling this shoe? What types of runs or what length runs are you going to grab this for your training?
So I initially was skeptical about long days with this shoe from like a comfortability standpoint, but for all the reasons you just suggested, that's not an issue for me. I could actually very much see myself doing longer outings in this shoe. The only things that would stop me from doing that is just the issues with ventilation, depending on the
Mm-hmm.
time of the year, and drainage, also depending on the time of the year. But yeah, I think similar to a lot of like casual trainer shoes that we've used or that we've reviewed in the past, I would use it in a similar scenario. I just think the added benefit here is the aggressive outsole that is a non-issue on like gravel and non-technical environments. So if there was ever a run where like I was going to go out for an hour or two on trail and there's maybe a case that I'm running into a little bit of technicality, I'll bring this shoe. I don't think I would race in it. I know too much. There's just other shoes out there that I would pull for any environment that it might be relevant for. But yeah, if there was going to be some mystery in my run and I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to encounter on a slightly longer day, I would bring this shoe.
Yeah, that's actually a great summary of like how I feel about the use case of the shoe. This is what I wrote down for would I race in it. I said I wouldn't start a race in it, but this would be my backup in case the conditions over the course of the race started to disintegrate. So, I mean, we see it in some of the fall hundreds, like the Bear or Wasatch, where it might start in wonderful conditions, but then, a storm comes through. It might get kind of crappy in the second half of the race or up in the higher parts. This
Yeah.
would be that shoe that I'm throwing in the drop bag or leaving with my crew that I might want to switch into if I need that extra, just upper protection, extra grip. So I'm probably not starting a race in it, but I might finish a race in it.
That's a great, I mean, I feel like that is an unsung but absolutely necessary use case that we should be talking more about. Like, would you finish a race in it? That should be a new category for us.
Would you start a race? Would you finish? Yeah, so like this is a race. This is a shoe where I might finish the race in. Um, in terms of durability, I'm surprised at how little wear there is on these lugs, even after a decent amount of road running and some harder packed trail running. I think Salomon hit it just right with this outsole. I love the 5 millimeter depth, and there's enough surface area touching the ground where I feel comfortable on the roads. Here's a question I have for you. Having this shoe, do you need the Salomon Speedcross in your closet as well? Like, is there a scenario where you need both of those shoes?
So I've actually never run in a speed cross before, so I'm probably not the best person to ask. But from what I've seen on the internet, this does not seem like, I was telling you this offline. This does not seem like a brother or a sister in the cross family. It's totally unique.
This is I feel like in the I don't know. I always felt like in the cross, like speed cross, thundercross, I always figured it was supposed to cross over something. Like, what was the cross part of the cross family? I feel like this shoe is actually what represents the cross part
Yes.
of the,
Yes.
the cross part of Solomon. Like, this can cross over to that technical, it can cross over to that dirt road. The biggest difference, I think, between this and the speed cross. So the speed cross does have 1 millimeter deeper lugs, but we're talking 5 versus 6.
Yeah.
This is pretty good. I would say nearly as good a lockdown on the upper. I mean, the only difference is that the speed cross, the upper wraps all the way around the midsole.
A little more performance oriented too, right?
A little bit. It's firmer. It's lower to the ground. The other thing with the speed cross, it's an ounce heavier than this, and it's a 10 millimeter drop.
And
Like
this is 4.
this is a 4 millimeter drop. You're
Yeah.
going to be so much more stable and secure in this shoe on more technical terrain, even though on paper the speed cross is meant for more technical terrain. Like if you're going down something very steep and you're in a 10 millimeter drop shoe, I don't need to be pitched any more forward when I'm descending something steep. I love that low drop shoe for that reason, because I don't going down 40-degree angle. Like I don't need to be pitched even further than that. Like that's how I start tumbling and windmilling and yard sale. I don't want any more yard sales. I've had enough yard sales this year.
But yeah, coming back to what you were asking about comparisons, one of the first that came to mind, because we reviewed it earlier in the year, or maybe it was late last year, was the Ultra Glide. And I mean, again, maybe I think this is the shoe that I've talked myself into the most out of all the shoes we've reviewed. And like I was thinking, like I originally loved the Ultra Glide so much. It felt like a Swiss Army knife. It felt like Salomon's Zagama in a lot of ways to me. But this is lighter than the Ultra Glide.
I like this better than the Ultra Glide. It fits me better. I could not get the lockdown correct on the Ultra Glide. No matter what I did, my feet just went straight. My toes went straight to the front. Zero issues with this one.
So I was just gonna say this is more comfortable than the Ultra Glide, and I thought the Ultra Glide was, at least for me, it was pretty comfortable. More aggressive lugs, more aggressive outsole.
Yeah. The only thing the Ultra Glide might have going for it is just a smidge softer cushioning.
Yeah, but like this, I mean, yes, that is 100%. But like a lot of this shoe is like the motto is like just enough.
Yeah, I think this is good enough.
Yeah, good enough.
Like the amount more cushion that the Ultra Glide has doesn't pull me away from all of the other positives of this Thundercross. Looking outside of the Salomon family, a couple other shoes that I wrote down that I felt competed against this in various ways were the Brooks Cascadia and the Nike Wild Horse were, because the Wild Horse does have some pretty deep lugs and similar stack, similar dimensions. The biggest difference is the Wild Horse has the summertime upper and this has the wintertime upper.
Where like where would you rank this shoe on the list of best first attempts at a shoe model?
Oh, that's a good point. You're right. This is the first.
That could be the YouTube
Thundercross
question. That could be the YouTube question.
This is a very good first. Like this is a very good new model. So much so that I'm having a little bit of a tough time figuring out what they would change for version 2.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would change about this shoe?
Is there anything I would change with the shoe? One sec. Sorry, Jules, give me 1 sec. Jules said sorry. She just interrupted the review. Is there anything I would change in the shoe? Yeah, ventilation, drainage. I would make the upper more breathable, I think. And then, I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are going to say, you know, I would love to see a rock plate thrown in this. I don't mind trading weight for the rock plate to perform even better in technical terrain. I never hit a rock or a sharp point between the lugs while training in this shoe to feel the pain, to be motivated to back them on that. So I don't know. For me, it would just be a more breathable upper.
Yeah, and I think Salomon has it somewhere within their technology room over in Annecy, France, where they can make this upper more breathable without sacrificing lockdown or durability. I
Yeah.
think they can do it. And I mean, of course, there's always like maybe a livelier midsole foam would be better, but that would come at the sacrifice of cost, which brings us to value. The shoe is $140. It's on the cheaper side. It's $5 less than a Speedcross. How do you feel about $140 for a Thundercross?
Every single talking point in this episode so far has talked me further into the shoe. 140 is amazing for everything we talked about today. This might be this is on my Mount Rushmore for 2023 best value shoes.
I think I agree with you, especially now hitting that 100-mile mark and how little the shoe changed after 20 miles. I was worried about the durability of just the quality of the cushion, but it feels great still, and I don't see why it wouldn't continue to feel great for at least a couple hundred more miles. So for $140 to get this kind of fit, this lockdown, this upper, this great outsole, and on a wider platform, this is going to be the speed cross for the masses, especially being a slightly more cushioned speed cross. So yeah, I mean, thumbs up to you, Solomon. Great job with the Thundercross. Great job with the name. So whoever was in the incubator for the naming of the shoe, you deserve a raise. If if you want to try these shoes out and your local run specialty shop doesn't have them, feel free to use our link below to try out the Salomon Thundercross from our friends over at Running Warehouse. Your purchase helps support, well, it helps support our channel, but it also helps support your own running, because now you're going to have a super badass pair of shoes called the Thundercross. When your friends ask you, hey, what are those? You could be like, Thundercross. And that's worth $140 in its own right. So hope everyone's having a nice holiday season, and we will see you in 2024.